Okay, so I'm going to open up my stage file in Photoshop to continue with my animation and my assets file. It's important to have two very similar sized files in Photoshop, but my assets file is the one where I can just build up lots and lots of different layers with different components, different puppets I can play with, different elements. And then my stage file is where I'm going to try to put my clean frames. And so far I have, notice how they say frame, not layer. I have 21 clean frames designed. All right. Now if I wanted to test those, you only test your animations within the stage. I have my timeline open. It's on frame by frame view, which is how we're learning to animate to begin with. And I'm going to make frames from layers. And you'll see the first 21 frames of them are all set. And then it gets a little crazy. So I'm going to select them all by holding down Shift, selecting the whole band. I'm going to set them all to be 0.3 seconds, which is a good default. And then loop it through forever. Let's see what we've got. So he comes in, he bounces, he's got the light on him. He's doing his little wiggle dance. That shows the wiggle cycle, and now we're going to have these storms kind of coming in. And I stole that from somewhere else. All right? So how are we going to blend that to make those frames with the storms going in? So at this point, I can delete all these, or not delete, that's a poor word. I can trash all of these frames. These are my new layers I'm going to mess with. So starting at frame 21, my last clean frame, I'm going to put on new frames, and I need the rock turned on, right? And I need the background frame turned on. This is me setting the stage now for the next moment. Yep. And I'm going to turn on the first of my storm cycle, which is right here. Now I'm going to duplicate that frame with this little new frame icon, just like a new layer icon. And I'm going to shift the storm cycle one further. And I'm going to set it to, what did I have this one set to? Soft light. So I'm going to set this one to soft light. That's like lighting direction. I'm going to change his pose 1. And I keep going that way. New frame. Change his pose to the next cycle, change the storm to the next cycle, switch it to soft light. I have to do it within each new frame because you can change the opacity of a layer or the blending mode of a layer with each frame. The only thing that stays on is that rock. So that looks good. You can see the kind of mist rising up. Next one. Next movement in the movement cycle. The problem with taking GIFs and compositing them, like I am here, is that it creates a whole lot of frames. It's not difficult, but I have 27 of these storm cloud movements to get to the next part in my storyboard. So I'm going to turn my storyboard on, just double click it and open it in preview. And right now I'm getting to this. So he's moving up and down, the storm's coming in. And he's going to look more and more concerned as it gets darker and darker. Now I go back to the beginning of the movement cycle. And it's only complicated because I want him to not be still the whole time. And I change this to soft light. And this is why animators seldom work alone. You have assistants. Because once you've set up all of your assets, this is just kind of grunt work. Going in and checking it all. But as you're learning, it's really good to learn how to control all these things, frame by frame. Now, because the storm, if I do a quick test right now, you'll see that the storm gets dark very quickly. All of a sudden is dark. And I'm going to adjust that with opacity. So now from here to here is too much of a shift. So what I'll do instead is then adjust within that frame before I flatten them into layers, is I adjust the opacity down to only like 10%. And then the next one, and take it down 20%. So it's going to darken very gradually. Next one, 30%. Depends on how long you have. Next one, 40%. So you can program in the opacity, the blending mode. Yeah, 30, 40, now 50%. And as it starts to get darker, I might jump a little bit. So now I'll go to 65 instead of just 60. Because we know the storm clouds gather pretty quickly. Now I duplicate it again, turn the next one on, and this one's going to be 65 to 80. And it's going to be soft light. And I got to change that movement cycle. And I can even play with, now that I want him to start feeling a little insecure about the environment, I can start playing with the movement cycle. This isn't a walk cycle, it has to be in an exact order. I can actually vary it a little bit, so it's not always him doing the exact same thing. So let's see how that's looking. There he is. It'll start to get darker. So on and so on. Okay. But that movement cycle is not that annoying, which is nice. So I'm just going to keep making duplicates, change them to soft light, go from 80 now to, let's do 90%. And keep playing with his movement cycle. Now I'm going to skip a little bit, so it breaks it up. Keep myself entertained as I make all of these storms go through. And now I'm going to do them at soft light at 100%. And you just get into a pattern of always checking the same things. Making sure that each frame is different than the one before. I'm going to run the walk cycle or the movement cycle backwards this time. So right now we're still just trying to understand all of our assets, all the potential we have. It looks so upbeat to be caught in a storm. And I don't even need to use all of these the way they are. In fact, maybe now it's already this dark. Maybe now I don't use soft light at all. Instead, I just use normal and just take the opacity down. Or maybe try a different mode. Oh, that looks too good. Or stick with the same. or maybe double them up a little bit. So this is soft light, but now I'm going to add 2 of them, and I'm going to put this one at a low opacity. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Okay. Now I need to change his body position too. So now it's getting serious. Storm is looking mighty. So I do the one underneath at soft light, and I do the one on top at normal mode, but let's move it up in 5% increments. So I want it to get pretty dark. I like the way the moon's looking there. Move it up to 30. Keep going. This will help me get through a lot of these cloud movements more quickly. And it can be hard to tell frame by frame if things are moving correctly. So that's why every once in a while you play through your animation and get a test. So let's see how it's going. So that storm coming in is going to look nice. And we're at the last one, finally. Last storm cloud. So I think that's about as dark as I want it. Change his movement. Maybe let's go back to the original. All right. So let's see how that looks. I'm going to hold this one for a bit. Let's hold it for 0.5. Bless you. Now I might decide I want some mist elements. I want some other stuff added in. So this is the important step. I know that I have the sequence of frames right for the storm clouds coming in. And it feels like rain, and it gets dark, and then now I'm going to have the lightning. So I'm going to flatten them now. I'm going to go to my very top layer or group, and I'm going to say flatten frames into layers. And it will give me a whole new set of frames. Now I have 38 finished frames. And what's a little difficult is I have to go down to where there's a lot there. To where it says frame 1. And now, because this is my stage, everything else, I get rid of. I clean it up. Because I pull all those from my assets. So I can delete them, or I can just drag them